4, you said, right?
Questions answered in one room.
Okay, we're now recording. Welcome this afternoon to our dry, hot commission meeting. We have a number of items on our agenda, but as always, we start with a prayer, a thought, a reading or a thought, and the Pledge of Allegiance. And we have a volunteer already, Mike Jenkins, for the prayer. I'm looking for anybody that would like to volunteer to do the thought. Any volunteers? Any volunteers for the pledge? I already have the prayer reading or thought. Paul Jones. Okay, come on up, Mike. Right here. Yes.
Our kind and gracious Father in heaven, we come before thee this afternoon humbly and with gratitude. I'm grateful for the blessings that are ours, for this beautiful place that we live here in Utah County, for the prosperity of the county and the good people who reside here. We come before thee today and ask thee, Father, to attend with us and send thy Spirit to influence the proceedings of this meeting, that as the agenda is worked through and all matters of business that are important today, all those who are here participating in these matters might be guided and directed, sustained and supported to present themselves and to listen and to manage these affairs in a manner that would be beneficial to the county and pleasing unto thee. We're grateful for all of those who serve in leadership in our county, and we're grateful for all of the residents who fellowship one another and sustain and support one another, and pray that thou wilt watch over and protect all of them. We're grateful for those who are in law enforcement and go about protecting us every day, putting their lives on the line. Ask thee to protect them and keep them safe. We pray today, Father, that thou would bless this area and all those throughout the country and world that are suffering from drought, that we and all might receive the moisture, the rain that we need to continue on with farming and other resources that we need to be successful. And we pray for the health and wellness and the prosperity of all of those in our county, and especially those who are here today, in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mike.
If you are able and willing, please rise and join me in reciting our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you for participating with us in that wonderful prayer. And we'll now look to our agenda. As you'll notice on our agenda, there's nothing listed under the consent agenda. We will attempt to fill that as much as possible. We'll go to our regular agenda and go through kind of in chunks and groups and pull things off of our regular agenda to be placed on the consent agenda if we don't hold them. If we hold them for discussion, then we'll leave them on the regular agenda to be discussed and then voted on. Otherwise, the consent agenda will be adopted to, approved by, ratified, or whatever the wording is that is on the list by all three commissioners. So with that, how about if we start from number 1 on our published regular agenda through item 20? Are there any items that we need to hold? I don't have any.
I don't have any.
I have none.
Okay.
Item 7, you might want to hold to make some findings for the fee waiver request.
Okay. All right.
Hold which one?
Hold number 7. Can we, well, we'll just hold it. All right, then we'll go through items 21 through 26. I will assume that 27 and 28 we're going to hold.
I have a question on item number 24.
24, okay.
I'd like to hold 23.
23. Okay.
27, 28.
Any others in that group? And then it's been requested that we have our closed meetings for item 29 and 30. Are there any others for 31, 30 and 31?
32,
Oh, excuse me, I misspoke. 29 and 32,
But not 30.
not 30 and 31. Would it be okay to leave them on as strike then for our regular agenda? Okay. And then and then for 29 and 32, we will have them to set a date. The date will be in today, the location here, following our regular agenda meeting. Okay. Alice, do you want to kind of do a recap on what we have?
You bet. I have that we will be holding items number 7, 23, 24, 27, 28, be holding 29 as stated, and striking number 30 and 31, and holding 32 as stated.
Fantastic. Okay. Thank you for that. So all other items, if you're here for the other items, they have been approved or agreed to or adopted. So now we'll go back to item number 7. Item number 7 is to approve the event permit fee waiver for the Wasatch Behavioral Health, Wasatch Wellness Race to be held. And from Dave's comments, there needs to be some findings of the reason why we'd be willing to, I'm assuming that we agreed, that all three of us agreed to that since we didn't want to hold it, but there needs to be some findings that it's in the best interest of the county. Is there a motion or?
yeah, the suggested finding would be that the benefit to the community exceeds the amount of the fee that's being waived.
I would agree with that. I think the benefit to the community does exceed the amount of the fee that's being waived. So with that said, I would move to accept that item number 7.
I'll motion that we approve item number 7.
I got a motion and a second to approve the item number 7 with the findings stated. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Okay, item number 23 is to approve and authorize the commission chair to sign a mutual aid and mobile field force agreement with other agencies. Commissioner?
I asked Sheriff Smith if you address a couple things, the duration of the term and how frequently we use the emergency system, both for training and actual.
How frequently we use,
The emergency system, emergency response system.
the ICS?
The ICS.
ICS is kind of woven into many aspects of what we do. Anytime we're doing something multi-agency, large scale, that is the model that we use. So whether whether it's a fire, whether it's a law enforcement function. ICS is the model we use. So this MOU is not, that's not the focus of this MOU, but that would be the model that it functions under.
Yeah, I went through it, and it was very thorough, and I appreciate that. I was just curious how often we use, is there a national level that we use this response system for? I know we coordinate within the county with other jurisdictions, other cities, but is there a national level that we use this system for?
A national level? Well,
Yes.
anytime, for instance, we have a fire right now in Benyon Creek, and this system would be,
That's part of it.
Yeah. So what did it get? I think we're at a type 3 right now. So so what you're asking is right now it's in use.
Okay. And the other question was why 50-year term instead of like a shorter
Yeah.
5-year?
A lot of the MOUs we have are many, a couple, few, I don't know what the number is, but we look at these numbers with our partners in Utah County, the other law enforcement agencies, and we set that 50-year term. This is something that, the 50-year set, we don't need to go in every 5 years and redo it, but we can. And if you want out, there's also a clause that you can get out with a 90-day notice. There's no fiscal note attached to this. It just, it keeps it intact, and so we're not continually having to renew something that doesn't need to be renewed. But if it does, it has language in there as well that we can go in and change the verbiage as needed.
So essentially, this agreement is where if a municipality needed additional support, it could request a neighboring city or the sheriff or whoever is available at the time and essentially coordinate it.
So yeah, the way it's set up is everybody, all the law enforcement entities in the county are partners in this. We have designated commanders, so it would go to that commander if we needed to enact the team, to the board. Actually, the board would consist of myself and other chiefs on the board, and that determination would be made, and then the commanders would take over from there once they're activated, activate the team, go back to the ICS that you asked about initially and function under those guidelines, get the team going and command it through whatever city we're in. If we happen to be in Provo, it would work through Provo's emergency operations.
Okay. And this includes UVU and BYU as well, then, their police forces.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just want to get some back and forth. We have not been able to talk about that, so I appreciate hearing that.
Yeah, it's a much needed mutual agreement. As we all know, last summer we dealt with this, and cross our fingers, knock on wood, it's not an incident or something we're going to use a lot. But last summer we did. It was something that we had not seen to that level in our wonderful valley, and hopefully we don't see it much more. But
Thanks, Sheriff.
Mhm.
I have no other questions.
Yep, I don't have any questions.
Make a motion that we approve item number 23 then.
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
I got a motion and a second to approve item number 23. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Number 24 is to approve and authorize the 21 state asset forfeiture grant. And I think Commissioner,
Yeah, I held that one. Sheriff, sorry you sat down. I have another question on your asset forfeiture grant. I should have told you to stay before.
I see that Trevor's been working on that, so I hope I can answer it for you, or maybe he's listening.
Well, it's just a simple question. Is this from civil asset forfeiture or criminal asset forfeiture? Or do we even know?
It's probably a mixture of both. So it's goes in through the state statute. It goes into a fund that can be accessed through a grant process through any agency in the state. So for me to answer what's in that fund and where it came from, it's coming from all over the state. So I don't know exactly.
So on this grant that you're asking for, is this specifically asset forfeiture that occurred in Utah County, or is this statewide and you've applied for a grant from a fund?
Statewide, you apply for a grant through that statewide collection. You can't hold asset forfeitures locally as per statute. They all go into one fund.
And then they are distributed out, not necessarily based on what each county collected,
Right.
but total?
Yep. It's distributed out on a grant basis and need, not on, what you got is yours. If
Okay.
that makes sense.
It does. Doesn't make me feel any better about accepting civil asset forfeiture money, but that's not a you problem. I think that that's a question that I would need to ask the state auditor if we've audited that fund. So that answered my question. Thank you so much.
Commissioner, to that point, the legislature, this was a part of a basket of reforms the legislature passed to remove the perception of an incentive on the part of local law enforcement to conduct civil asset forfeiture because they could potentially use the proceeds. And so now there's this statewide pool where all asset forfeiture monies are put in the statewide pool. And then CCJJ oversees that pool and grants out money to local law enforcement based on demonstrated needs through this grant program. So
Okay.
it kind of removes the tie from local civil forfeitures. It really more gears the money towards needs of law enforcement.
So the
for
needs of law
broadly.
enforcement rather than an incentive. Okay.
Exactly.
That actually
And there
answers
is a
one of my
higher
questions.
percentage of that actually goes into education fund. And just to
Right, and I understand that, but
just to help you feel a little
civil
better,
asset forfeiture
I
going
can-
to education
can
doesn't make
speak-
me feel any better either, because it's still
Well-
civil asset forfeiture.
just to speak on that
Yeah.
just for a second, and this, I don't know that this is the forum, but the word gets tied up a little bit. I can tell you in Utah County what the practice is. You're gonna, you hear somebody say, hey, I lost everything I ever owned because I had, they found a seed of marijuana in my car. Well, we always ask, well, show us the case. Where did that happen? I can tell you that's not happening in Utah County. These monies are being taken from who we are targeting is drug cartels.
Yeah.
And so you have drug cartels that are moving quantities of product through our counties and into our citizens and plaguing our citizens, and we make these arrests, and quite frankly, I don't want to give them back their stuff because it'll just go back into service to supply poison to our community. So that is why I feel it's important to do these things and get those tools out of their hands and not back into the
to commend you,
crime
I've-
circulation.
As my 2.5 years as the auditor, I watched closely, and I didn't see a single case in Utah County that I felt uncomfortable with. And I am vehemently against civil asset forfeiture, and in 2.5 years, I didn't see a single case. So I want to commend you on your use of asset forfeiture. I just wanted
We're
to do
very
my-
careful.
You
and
are.
We don't want to be the poster child for, somebody to be able to say you did this. So we're
Absolutely. So I just had to ask the question, but I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate, and I know that you do very strict due diligence on that, and I appreciate that.
Is it possible, Sheriff, for a son to have a vehicle, maybe it's his dad's truck, and then get caught with something, and then that gets seized for a period of time, and they have to fight to get that truck back?
It would depend on what is in that truck. I mean, if a son is using a truck to transport large quantities of narcotics, it's probably going to get seized. It's probably going to become part of evidence, and there will be a process to get it back. If it just depends on what they're dealing with, and to think that, everybody goes right to, well, the story you always hear is they had a marijuana joint in their ashtray and didn't even know how it got there, and we took everything. Well, again, show me where that's happening. But if, to think that a son or somebody can borrow something and then not move large quantities of narcotics through our area isn't real. It happens. It does happen. And so, yeah, there would be a process that they would have to go through to get that back because it was involved in a serious crime.
Okay.
Okay, I appreciate you answering our questions. Thank you. Okay. That satisfied my curiosities on that, and so I will move to accept item number 24.
I'll second that motion.
Get a motion and a second to approve and authorize as stated number 24. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Okay, 27 is a continuation, and thank you for the opportunity to get more information and work through and have multiple discussions here and there on this issue. It is to authorize a change in the staffing plan for the recorder's office as described in this item. Not sure, commissioners, on how you'd like to start. Unless, Andrea, unless you'd like to start.
No, I just didn't know if you had further questions of me, or I can go sit back down, whichever is your pleasure.
Okay, any preferences?
No? I'm good.
So again, thank you for the opportunity to do more research on this. In doing so, I did find some areas that were concerning to me. I'd like to at least voice them. We have, and it kind of stemmed around. It didn't stem around. Do we have the money? For this? Just because we have the money doesn't necessarily, for me, mean that it should be done. That's not the issue. It's not an issue of money with the change in the fee structures and so forth. That's there. For me, it came down to on a reasonable basis what we should be doing, or what is the proper staffing level, how we can measure the staffing levels, how we can have performance metrics in place. And in doing so, reaching around the state and asking multiple recorders, which is not necessarily apples for apples, but it does give us a little bit of an idea of what's happening around the state in different jurisdictions as well. I gravitated a little bit more to Salt Lake County just because of where they're at, and they're ahead of us in their recordings quite significantly. And so it almost seems like that we're, in many cases, trying to follow a certain lead. Here's where, when I got their information, they're talking about documents and their recorded documents, and I fully realize from our conversation that sometimes measuring documents is an interesting twist in there on what that actually means, but it's really hard to define it, and no one has yet defined to me how we can get that all the way to measure up apples for apples. So with that, and taking the numbers, now it comes to a certain productivity level, and where they're at. Salt Lake County this year, it appears like they're going to be doing about 7,400 documents per employee. That's the numbers that they gave us last year. In 2020, there were over 8,000 documents per employee that they were handling. And my numbers are a little bit fuzzy on this, but it looks like at one point we were at 53 or 58 was another number that was used. So 5,800 documents is something that we have achieved, we have done. And we're looking at what the workload can be, and maybe just to retrace, and talking with Ralph Barnes a little bit about this. There is a lack, I believe, not for this situation but for the future, and that is having a statistician, or however Ralph would define it, an individual who could go through and do a really in-depth analysis when it comes to staffing needs. That I think is something that we need to look for in the future, even if we hire out to have it done, for these kind of issues that come up. Otherwise, it seems really disjointed to me. But nevertheless, as I'm looking at it, in 2017, Salt Lake County did 243,230 documents recorded, which is pretty dang close to what we're projecting, and that's again 2017. And at the time, they fulfilled that and did their statutory responsibilities on that with about 44 employees. This proposal here puts us over 50, and my concern there is that even with Salt Lakes, and I'm trying to mirror them or watch them, they're going to be doing significantly more documents than we do. They did 357,000 plus in 2020, and they did that with 43, realizing there was a jump, and so they're moving their numbers up. But nevertheless, when I see that and see that we're going to be going up to their numbers, or even not possibly surpassing their number with employees, that always gives me pause. So it comes back to what is the rate? What is the proper rate of documentations, documents that can be done in a reasonable manner? We have done 5,800 per employee. and that seems pretty reasonable. I know that there's been calculations where it said, well, let's take an average of the past years and then make that work, which is down to about 4,700. And I don't know how I can, if we can do it at a certain level, I think we should be expecting at least being able to do it at that level, or even maybe a little less, depending on the time of training that takes, to get that work done. And so for me, in reviewing the numbers and having the conversations, I'm not prepared to go at this level. I would prefer that we do a step, a revisit, and analyze where we're at to see if our numbers are holding. We would hopefully expect that with performance in place, adding 2 additional IT individuals for the department, which I think is critical that they have those 2. And if 2 IT people, I would assume would give us greater productivity than what we're doing now, those numbers should go up from the 53 or 58 to even higher, and that would offset where we're at. So with that, I mean that's my initial thoughts when it came to it.
So I have a quick question for you. Do you know what the Salt Lake County Recorder's Office budget is this year? 2021, what's their expected budget?
They have, well, in 2020 they had revenues of 15 million,
Right. Do you know what their budget was?
and their budget spent was 6 million.
$6 million. Andrea, what's your budget?
This year it's just, well, it was under 2.9, and then it got increased to just over 3.
Okay. If you had a $6 million budget, how many documents do you think you could record per person with the increased technology that you could afford with a $3 million increase in your budget?
Whatever happened to come in the door, most likely.
So you think you'd be more efficient if we doubled your budget?
Doubled my budget, absolutely.
Okay. So I think, as I look at this, the Salt Lake County Recorder's Office has 43 employees right now, and they have 8 openings, which would actually put them at 51. So they have about 51, but they also have doubled budget, which means that they have the ability to record documents significantly more efficiently because they have access to technology that we don't have. So I have a hard time comparing us to them in the fact that they literally have twice the access to efficiencies and technology. So I do understand comparing, people to people. I do understand that their process does not include some of the steps that our process includes because they farm those out.
Correct.
And so I think we're comparing apples and oranges when we compare ourselves to Salt Lake County as far as how many documents they can record, because I can tell you if I had an extra $3 million, we could do things a lot more efficiently in a lot of areas. So, yeah, and that was their actual budget spent in 2020. I look at it like this. We are paying for a service, and we're paying a fee for that service.
Correct. This is fee-based.
Correct.
You're
So it's not
correct.
taxes.
It is not taxes.
This is not taxes. This is fee-based.
This is fee-based for the people who are recording those documents in our office.
Right. If I hired a lawn care company to mow my lawn, and 30 or 60 days later they had still not mowed my lawn, I would be really upset, and I would take my money and go somewhere else. But legally, people don't have that option. They have to pay that money to us, and we're their only option. And so they've given us their money to do a service, and 30 days later or 60 days later, that service isn't done because we don't have enough people. But the irony of that is they paid a fee for that service, and that fee actually gives us enough money to do that service. So if I went to a lawn care company and I said, I'm going to pay you $40 to mow my lawn, and 30 days later or 60 days later, my lawn was still not mowed, and I would say, why haven't you mowed my lawn? And then they said, because we don't have enough employees and we don't have enough lawnmowers to mow your lawn now, but we can get to it in 60 days. And I would say, well, then what did I pay my money for? Let me see your books. And they'd say, oh, well, we have $8 million sitting here. Really? With your $8 million, do you think you could buy another lawnmower and maybe hire some more people? Or why am I paying you to mow my lawn? So I look at it that the proper role of government is for three things: to preserve life, liberty, and property. And recording our land is essential in protecting our property. So this is one of the three actual things that government should be doing. And we pay a fee for that. It's not tax. We pay a fee for that, and we're not providing that service. And we're actually doing it incredibly efficiently, because if you look at people, maybe you say we're not as efficient, but if you look at budgets, we're amongst the best of the best.
I agree.
I refinanced my home this year. I paid the $40. And it's taking a long time.
It is.
And I recognize that's because you don't have enough lawnmowers and you don't have enough people pushing those lawnmowers, but I paid my fee. And I'd like my property to be recorded because that's actually the role of government. So I feel comfortable voting for this because if we're comparing apples to oranges, we are a little bit behind in Salt Lake County. But when we look at budgets, we're significantly ahead. And this is not tax dollars. This is a fee that the people of this county pay for. And they don't have the option to go to someone else because we haven't put in a free market solution. We have mandated a government service for them that they don't have a choice, and then we're not providing that service with the money that we've been given. So I'm going to vote yes.
So since you asked me a question, I want to ask some back. We're at a point where we need to decide which path we're going to go. It looks like that Salt Lake County has decided that they want to invest into infrastructure because they're putting a lot of money in that way. And just because they have a budget of $15 million, they only spent $6 million.
Right.
So
we spent $2 million.
yeah, yes, but in 2020, right. But so what I'm saying is that then they must have put something into programming, or they must have put it into some infrastructure or technology. So there's two ways that you can get services done, and that is that you can put more manpower into it, or you can invest into some technology, which I think we're trying to do with the two IT people as well, for efficiencies. So if we're deciding that we want to just invest into manpower the whole time in this, then that's a choice. Where we're constantly going to be adding more staff members to do the work instead of trying to find efficiencies using technology to try to find ways to get it done. And that's where I think we're on that crossroads. Right. And so for me, we don't even know. I don't even know if we have a measurement on what the two IT personnel are going to do in efficiencies. Are they going to be able to bump us from 5,300 to 6,300? We haven't even given them a chance yet to even say this is going to give us more efficiencies, so therefore we can do more with less personnel. I would like to see us, take an opportunity to see if we can do more with less because of technology, which...
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. I think we should do both. That technology does cost money, but I think we can do an all of the above solution. We're so far behind here that I think we can do both. And I think we should do both. And I think we should put performance metrics. I agree 100% with you that there needs to be performance metrics. And we should look for efficiencies and we should look for improvements. There's a couple of things. I think number one, we can do an all of the above strategy. Number two, we absolutely should have performance metrics. And you know me, I would hold you to that. And if you're not meeting performance metrics, I'm not opposed
we have
to
got
reducing staffing plans.
We've got those.
And number three, as we look at this department is run by an elected official, and the people of this county chose her to run that division, and we need to give her that respect. I would be doing things a little bit differently than you, right? I would, like you, me personally, I would be investing more in innovation and more in technology. I would be recording our documents on the blockchain. I would be looking at our property, and I would be recording our property on the blockchain. I would be looking at immutable ledger. I would probably be looking at Ethereum. I would be embracing innovation in a way that probably makes you feel a little uncomfortable, because that's me. But I wasn't elected to be the recorder. I was elected to be a county commissioner. So I agree with you. I think we need to embrace innovation. I think we need to have performance metrics. I've pushed those two things since I started at the county 2.5 years ago. And I think that if we don't see those things, I'm not opposed to reducing staffing plans. With that said, the people of this county elected you to protect their property rights. So I think that we should respect that.
And there are some uniqueness between Salt Lake County and Utah County. Salt Lake County landmass is about a third of the size of Utah County. And there are open lands, of course, but it's essentially built out. And so changes there will be either switching ownership, absorbing new properties by single entities or multiple entities that did not exist before, tearing down construction sites or structures and putting new ones in place. So there is some kind of fixed land area for the Salt Lake County. Whereas Utah County, and that includes the water areas that we're speaking about for both Salt Lake and Utah County. What we're looking at is, do we need to catch up to where Salt Lake County hopes to be this current calendar year? And so I weighed that. Technology is evolving. It will constantly do so. And they have already taken advantage of some technological advances, more obviously to come. I talked to a few title companies, and some were not in, others were, and those that were in are frustrated with Utah County's processes, because it does take them 30 to 60 days to get records accessible to them. The Salt Lake County, they said there are errors in that, and they think that they approach it differently, maybe more hurriedly. But overall, they're happy with the county's recorder's processes there. They identified the last few years as being the most difficult time. COVID has added to that. And so we discount 2020 and pretend it's not 2020 ever existed, just pretend it's 2019 prior to that. Then the difficulties had started back some time ago. And I've been back and forth trying to be as neutral as I possibly can and trying to keep as much of a poker face as I can with everyone I visited with, because I wanted to know, should we advance this in a step measure, half now, half later next year, wait to see how things go, or do the whole 17 now, the 15 plus 2 IT people. But given what I see going on in the way of revenues, of course, as you said already, there is plenty enough revenues. In fact, there's a little over $8 million being held separately out of that recorder's office reach that is there if it's needed. I am of the same mind as I was last week. I think we should go ahead and go with the 17. When I talked to HR, they said they expect to be about 3, 4, maybe 5 months to get all 17. It will take some time. I asked if we just go half that number. He felt like it'd be about 6 to 8 weeks, a couple months to do that. Public Works will need to go in and spend some money to expand that office, so that's going to interrupt some things. Anticipate that they may fall behind between infrastructure changes and new people being brought on. I think we talked on that briefly, that as you bring new people on, there'll be some slowing down on processes. Mm-hmm. If we were to go half now, half next year, it would double the interruption is what I'm concerned about. My perspective, at least, it would be best if we did that now. She lost to 10 back in 2008, as you're aware already, and we never replaced them. And that is kind of exacerbate. Excuse me. It's exacerbated the situation there. So doing using the Salt Lake measurements, looking at what they have. Again, they're a third of the size of land mass as Utah County is. It's wrongly to say it, but they're almost built out. They'll make changes, of course, but they're built out. So they have nominal recording changes compared to what Utah County is going through with housing, businesses, schools, et cetera, that are going on. So that's where I see a difference there.
I think to add to that, one thing that we haven't discussed is the fact that these are this budget is paid for using fees
No
that,
additional
that the people
taxes.
pay, so there's no taxes, right? So we've talked about that. This is not tax money, this is fee money, and that fee is set by the state. And we as a county are a subdivision of the state government. So any authority that we have as a county, we have that it is granted to us from the state government. And the state legislature set that fee. And they set that fee, they recently changed that fee in 2019. And the reason they changed the fee in 2019 was because the recorder's offices in the counties across the state did not have the resources that they needed in order to do their job adequately. Utah County being one of them. Utah County, Salt Lake County, all the counties did not have the money they needed to do their job adequately. And so the state adjusted that fee so that we could then put that money into our recorder's offices so that they could do their jobs adequately. And that was just in 2019. And so this is kind of us reacting to that fee change. The fee was changed for a reason. It was from the state. The purpose of that money was to go into the recorder's office so that we could increase the timeliness in which we record those fees.
And I appreciate that. I see where this is going. There's no need to keep, beating the
Commissioner Lee,
horse.
if
Hold
I-
on. I'll give you a second.
Okay, thank you.
I do think it's interesting, there's different perspectives. Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't on some of the analyses. When it comes down to it, I think it's a workload function and calculation instead of a projection into the future on what landmass looks like. But nevertheless, I'll be voting no on it. I think it's just I would rather see us invest more into technology. And we say performance metrics, but we never define what that looks like. We never define that a performance matrix on that means that we're going to expect, a certain level that we've already achieved, like the 5,800 per employee, that, or the 53 or whatever the case is. And if that's because if we invest in and the workload goes back and now we start going regressive in the number of documents, that's where it gives me big pause. And I would prefer investing into some of the technologies so that we can increase that. And get that up. I'd like to see it at 6,000 or 7,000 documents. And if that's the case, and if we start going in that direction, and we have those kind of documents being produced at that level, then we might have to revisit and say, is our staffing levels at the adequate level, or are we overstaffed?
And I would be very open to that, 100%.
But we don't have that in
place.
place. I mean, it just becomes subject to whoever thinks about it into the future.
What I'd like to do is actually revisit this on a future agenda item and review recorders, surveyors, all the other departments, and have these matrix established perhaps early. This may be way out there, but it might be as early year 2023, to see where are we with the recorder's office and others. Are we getting the most out of the staffing that we have by that time? And you're going to need the rest of this year to get them up and going, of course, and you're going to have some infrastructure interruptions as well. But if we can focus on 22 and see how we can establish those matrices at the same time, we're providing the service that some of these title companies are expressing some dismay over.
We could almost visit it during the budgeting season at the end of 2022.
That might be too early, given it's
we could
going
look at it.
to
We'd at least have
take
some- yeah.
3, 4, maybe 5 months to get the manpower in the first place. By that time, the year will be just about spent, and she will still be training the new
Right.
people. So this year will probably be too early, and that's what I was saying, maybe early 23.
Andrea.
Can I give you some?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
This shows that as of June 14th, our total recorded documents were 107,620. And these are the 4 areas that we touch the documents. And we do touch the same document multiple times, which is one of the efficiencies that we're looking to bring in, that we don't have to touch the document by entry and by proofing, hopefully just by entry. But I just want to show you what my team is doing. And you can correct my math, but the bold numbers, entry as of June 14th had created 98,593 documents. We have 8 people who work in entry. They're not entering all day long every day because they have to record the document. They have to approve the document through Simplifile so that it can be recorded. They answer the telephones and they do the walk-in mail. And they rotate between those tasks, and all of that is considered entry. But you can see that from those 8 employees that are assigned entry, they have done 12,324 documents per those 8 employees. Check my math for me, because I could have made an error. Proofing is looking at the documents that have been entered and validating that the information is correct before it goes to the mapper and into our interim description, which is where the title companies can then have access to it. They're looking for the correct fee considerations, correct spelling on owner names, instrument dates, amounts of recording. So they're proofing, and we have 5 people doing that. So of the 84,148 that have been proved up till June 14th, those 5 employees have done 16,829 per employee. The routing in the fodder, these are documents that are considered non-conveying, so like your mortgage documents, liens. If a city records a change of address, they've labeled their street 1400 North and they really wanted it to be 1450 North. It really doesn't change ownership or the description. Those documents are routed to the fodder team, and there are currently only 2 who are doing that right now. Of the 54,624 documents that have gone fodder, each one of those employees has done 27,312. Now, there are some efficiencies in this number. If it is a subdivision, so if it's a refinance and it has the legal, our program does have predictable to where it will fill in the information and it's just a verification. That's why that number is double what some of these other numbers are. So there are efficiencies in our system, and we look to enhance those. Obviously, we want to do that. The mappers have completed 43,828 documents. Now, these documents are name changes, they are segregations, they are subdivision maps, and if it is a section parcel, the mapper also handles what is considered the fodder. So if I have a section property and I refinance, my refinance document goes to the mapper as well as the name change, rather than the fodder document going to the fodder crew. And the mappers, there are 10 currently. Now, they do the GIS, so they plat and map these parcels. It's not just a document entry. They create the ownership, they create the new serial numbers that are then given to the assessor's office. And there are 10 who are currently mapping, and they have each done 4,382 documents per employee. So I just want you to know that we're not sitting in our offices not doing our best. We definitely are doing our best. And our best has got us to entry is in April, and proofing is in March, and the mappers are also in March. So we are out of compliance. And that's why with the data that we had, with the calculations we had, even though it may have seemed low-level analysis, it reflects the need that we have to become compliant. So I just wanted you to know that we're doing our best, we're working hard, and here are some numbers that show that my team is doing their best. I just want to add that this year so far, we have done 259, we have recorded 259 subdivision plats. As we've talked about the comparison, I know Salt Lake County has their surveyor's office check their subdivision plats that happen to come in. We do that work, and so far this year we're at 259. And you know, the other documents that go in support of these changes. And these are the changes that create the new parcels that create the new growth. So,
I don't,
thank you.
I want to make sure, this is not a reflection on the amount of work. I
Oh,
think
I know, I know.
all of us agree that there needs to be more, more help on there. And maybe, maybe I'll just give a little story, personal story on my side. When I and some friends were traveling to California, and we had a water pump go down in St. George. All we could do was get the part, and all I had was a socket set, a screwdriver, and vice grips. We spent all night long working to get that pump out because we had a recessed bolt. If I would have had the right tool, it would have been a quick process to get done. But we spent all night long working on it. Just to do that, if I would have had that, we'd have had that going in a couple hours. We'd have had that water pump changed. And like I mentioned to you, I think that we need to invest into the technology. The IT people is going to be a big benefit. We don't even know what that's going to look like. And like I said, I think we're at a point to where, are we going to throw more manpower into it? More manpower into that situation down there with me and my three friends was kind of helpful, because your arm gets tired and you got to switch off and you got to do it again, and somebody's got to sit there and go, as we try to get that one bolt out. But still, it's not that all three of us up here acknowledge that there needs to be more help, and the funding's there to help with doing that. It's just a direction of where we're going to go and where we need to invest into to get to that point. And I'm fearful without performance matrix, there's a little bit of a disincentive. I'll call it a disincentive. With more hands and more on deck, there could be a thought of less work. And I hope that our numbers go up, not down. And as they go up, then it would be reflective of having more helpers there, or more workers there, that, then we get to a point where we start asking that question. I think that's where the performance metric, Josh even put it in that meeting that we had. He had a recommendation that maybe, for the fear of the commission, that we put a freeze on any, if there's attrition that happens, there's a freeze and a recapture or a relook back, so that we can say, well, if we've increased inefficiencies with technology, with IT, with others, do we really need to have all these individuals there, to continue going forward without doing a riffing program or anything of that nature?
And as I have explained, there are processes that we have put a mid and low priority on that have not been done for multiple years. And realize I just came into this in January. Even though I've worked in the office, this is now my baby completely as of January. And there are things that have not been done that have been put on a lower priority, on a back burner, because our priority is to get this information to the assessor and available for the public and the title companies, so that they're not in trouble, that the assessor's office is not getting fined, that the title companies are not getting claims placed on them because they can't find the information. So yes, we're committed to technology and to new innovations, and we are totally committed to doing whatever we need to do to make things move forward, to be more efficient. And we need the asks that I have presented to you to make that happen. And if things do slow down in recording, they're not going to slow down in the rest of the department. And we have the fees there. We have the fees available in case there happens to be that drop before it goes back up again.
So-
That's there.
I appreciate that. I am willing to make the motion that we pass this, and I just want you to know, I agree with Commissioner Lee on several things that he said, and I would encourage you to work very closely with the auditor's office in creating these performance metrics, in reporting back to us regularly on the productivity to let us know that things are getting better. And I really would love to encourage you to look at technology and efficiencies. And I think you will. But I think that I feel comfortable making this motion to pass this, just knowing that I think we will hold you accountable for this, right? If we're giving you this limb, that I think that we need to make sure we work together, that we can feel comfortable
Absolutely.
moving forward.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'll go ahead and I'll make a motion that we approve item number 27.
And that's what I was saying earlier, that I'd like to look at this a little bit more closely in early 2023. This will give you a full year to see where we are, what technologies might need to be implemented, used, or improved, because you'll use the rest of this year just for training. Infrastructure changes that Public Works are going to have to do, and Human Resources are going to have to find those people, which we have some list lined up, of course.
So, Commissioner, I hate to jump in. I have a motion.
Oh.
Is there a second? And then we can probably continue.
I was just going to try to finish an earlier thought. but
Sorry. I'm just trying to.
I would like to second the motion that
I
we
do have a
approve
motion
item
and a
number
second.
27.
Please continue.
I'm done.
Oh, you're done? Okay. Sorry.
No, that's
I
fine.
cut you short on
So
that.
item 27, I'd make a second the motion to approve that.
Okay. I have a motion and a second to authorize the change as stated. Is there any other discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, aye. So we have a 2-1. Commissioner Gardner, Commissioner Sakovic in the affirmative, and myself in the negative.
Thank you, commissioners, and yes, I will continue to work with you and continue, you've seen our dashboards, you know what data we're collecting, you know what metrics we have.
Yeah, and
And
I'll
we will
to
continue that.
Push you past your comfort zone on embracing technology. So
Yep, thank you.
Okay. All right, let's move to 29, which is to approve and authorize the signing of a resolution amending the Utah County Capital Planning Policy.
28.
And what did I say?
You said 29. It's okay.
Or 28, sorry.
Wasn't sure
It's
For the minutes that we're on, we're good.
so we've got we've got a lot of proposals on this one. We've got,
Yeah, I would say, Commissioner Lee, I submitted mine Friday early
Got it.
afternoon, and I don't know if anyone's actually seen it yet. That was my only, it wasn't on the agenda this morning, and it was put on earlier, a couple hours ago. So I don't know how many actually saw it. And I haven't finished combing through to see the differences that have been made and proposed that included that, yours and Amelia's earlier.
okay.
So would you feel more comfortable if we continued this one more week? I don't think that this is something that's pressing. So I would feel
I'd like
comfortable
to
if you
wait
would like to.
one more week, yeah.
Okay, how do you? are
Yeah,
you good with
I
that? Okay.
Rudy and I sat down and hammered out a bunch of stuff too, back and forth. I'm wondering, do we want to have any discussion on this, or do we want to just look at some modifications? Because I know that from my conversation with Rudy, we had some understandings on different structures
Yeah, I would love to,
of it, and there was some misconceptions that I think that we cleared up, between each other on it. I also, read down through the others, and there's some areas in there, Commissioner Sakovic, I duly note the one area when we're talking about rolling. Well, we don't actually say rolling on a 3-year. I think that's important that we do put something in there because it does look like you had changed it because it looks like the initial 3 years sets in stone and then it doesn't move. And then I think that does need to be rolling. But I do have one question on yours, Commissioner Sakovic, which I'm trying to understand a little better. And that is under the section 4, you have in here, you're talking about, however, if after 180 days the item is not brought back for consideration, it is expunged from the CIP. I'm not sure what the intent is with that.
The few words prior to that, before the semicolon, says the not approved by the board by resolution will remain on a project list for future review. It seems that if it's just in orbit forevermore, we should have a calendar where it's removed, because if it's not going to come in for consideration later on, then we should have a calendar where it says it's dropped from that list. And I just propose 180 days without a chance to visit with the Public Works and others to see if that makes sense, or it should be longer than that. But I put that down as more of a talking point.
Okay. All right. And then in working with Rudy on them too, there was a thought process that, and I just wanted to express it so that if there's changes to it, maybe we can have discussion now. That's and that is, so I would like to see that we have a longer bandwidth with the commissioners when it comes to the. So there's two processes. There's a process of development of the CIP, and then there's the process of management of the current projects that are going on. So I'm talking about the second process of development of the CIP when the project's coming in. It was a great recommendation to change it from, take and strike off the form, because now we're going through a digital process of that instead. But for me, the hardest part when we're spending millions and millions of dollars is to get a documentation kind of at the tail end of the process. And then all of a sudden, we got to vote on it. Even if it's just 1 month, you're trying to scramble. So in talking with Rudy, we're trying to find a way that when the CIP committee gets together, whatever that is, we have it on a regular basis or as needed basis, when they go through that process and then check off the boxes, that we get to see that information sooner and then later, so that we have a longer burn time of understanding when we finally get to the point to where we're starting to vote, on the plan. That was one that I think that we're kind of trying to develop into something a little bit better. And then the second one has to deal with let's see, the wording in here. It talks about on a management. Now we're switching to the management side. On the management side, where if there's processes that happen, which we need to interject quickly, or whatever the case may be, on an administrative side. If we have an ability, like a change order, like we'd mentioned, like a change order or a process in place in which we can state, we would like to do it in a letter format or something like that, where it can be done quickly if there's a change in pricing, in concrete or whatever, or if we get infused with a different resource in the way of funding the project. Those were the two that I think we kind of focused. The rest of it, we were just moving paragraphs from one area to another or changing minor words here and there.
Yes, and I was trying to include some kind of calendar, so I include like words such as quarterly reports, something that helps us so we have a feel for how something is developing or not developing.
Yeah.
And keeping the board involved.
And I felt that same. I mean, I saw yours doing the same thing. I think it's a matter of just finding the words that make sense, for the capital improvements project committee, and keeping us informed on that developing in the future, and then the one where that's being managed for today, that we're also involved in it when there's potential changes that come along. Is that accurate from our conversation?
No, I completely agree. One thing to keep in mind here, Commissioner Sakovic wasn't part of the process last year, but that was the first CIP that we'd actually put together for a county. So we knew that there were going to be changes, and I think what Commissioner Lee has put forth in his recommendations are very similar to what we were thinking about as well. I think there's just a little bit of a difference in understanding of perhaps how we would go about doing that. So I think what we are going to be doing is gathering all the information. We'll get the project data. We'll go through and do the analysis of what we, believe it should be and giving it our internal ranking. And then the plan was to give it to the commissioners. As Commissioner Lee said, I do not want to wait until the end of the, November or whatever to spring it on you guys. I think you guys need to have it earlier so that you can make good decisions. One thing though that maybe speaking to the comment about 180 days on that, Commissioner Lee and I also had a comment of that when we're putting this list together, it's not what we're actually going to have for our capital plan per se, because we may have projects that are like this wide, this many projects, but we can only afford about this many of them. But what it does do when we bring forth all of those projects is we can see what our real needs are, so that we can't just micro focus. If nobody tells us we don't have other needs, then we focus on these little pieces right here. But by bringing in a bigger bucket of things, we get a better idea of what is out there, and then the commissioners can use that information to make decisions on how we're going to most effectively utilize our resources, that we have limited resources. So I think we're definitely we're thinking along the same process here with all of us. I think we like the idea of having quarterly reports. In fact, I'm not going to overpromise, but I think that we're going to be able to make progress in that very well this next year with some of the technology at our fingertips.
Quarterly on the ongoing
On the
projects.
reporting of the ongoing, on the current, so
There's
for
that two
instance,
sides.
let's put it into this year. So in November, we passed the 2021 CIP plan. And when we talk about CIP, it's the first 3 years of that 10-year lookout. We budget the first year only, although we have to have funding for the other 2 years in there. So what we're looking at then, so what we would be saying is that perhaps in March of 2021, we would bring a report to the commission on the status of the 2021 projects. Not the 2022, but the 2021. So it would be looking back to what we've already budgeted and looking at that. And I think that would be a great thing for us to do, because you need to be able to see where we are in that. We hope that we want to do a formal report to you, but we also, with the technology, want to give you tools at your fingertips to where you can look in and see it for yourself on a light, a real-time basis as well.
I like that. What if we did this? I looked at all the versions, and from the versions that I looked at, I think, Commissioner Lee, I think yours was probably the closest. Yours had incorporated everything that I was hoping to do. Would you feel comfortable if moving forward we kind of work off of yours, and then we incorporate the things from Tom's that we talked about that were good, and the things that Rudy has talked about that are good, and then we maybe move forward with that next week?
Sure.
Can I make a recommendation?
And then we can adjust the version that you so that we don't have 4 different versions that are uploaded.
Yeah, or
right. So we
5
have
or whatever
one,
we-
right, 4 or
Yeah,
5 that we
5,
have.
6.
Right. That gets a little confusing for when we're actually going to go through and modify this. So I think if we work from yours, Commissioner Lee, and we can incorporate a few of the things from Commissioner Sakovich's that we talked about that we all agreed on, and your input, Rudy, the things that I had wanted are already in that. I would feel comfortable if we did that and we moved forward.
I would agree with that if we would put the comments in that Commissioner Sakovich has on the rolling instead of, I think that needs to be in there.
Yeah.
And then I also think that there was a couple of we need to strike out the form for sure.
Yes.
That needs to be off. And then there was some movement of, like, for instance, if you're looking at, it's page 5, and there's 2 paragraphs down here in which they're the same paragraph, they're just moved differently.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not there's no word changes. It's just where they're placed.
Yes.
And so if we want to leave them in the same place, that lends for a different process mindset. If we leave them, I think we're fine. But the one that I do think is on the CIP committee. I do think that one, the same wording on the third paragraph down, should be moved to the very front, which comes from the CIP committee, because that is the definition of what the CIP committee is.
Correct.
And then we go down from there. So if we were just to do that, those simple changes, and then work off of it, I think we're at least starting from a better standpoint.
So we just get a clean copy what Bill's describing then, and we can work it from there.
Yeah, so what I was going to suggest is that perhaps we go with, with Commissioner Lee's starting point, and then we look at incorporating some of the changes we had, and I can put a draft together that we can circulate amongst the commissioners and, within the next day or so.
Would you do those changes? And probably on
Absolutely.
the CIP committee, I don't think, when I was looking at the different versions, there is a duplicate on that one. It
Yeah.
basically says the same thing,
Yeah.
just a little bit different words.
Yeah. Yes.
We can strike that one. We don't need to have it on there.
Yeah.
Because it says the same thing right above it.
Right, and so I'd be happy to start to try and pull those together. I joked about taking it to the conference committee, and Jeremy asked me, "Who's the conference committee? You?" And I said, "Well, we can't have all of you, kind of, weighing in separately. I mean, separately we can. So that's what I think would be probably good, is for me to incorporate what I've heard and what you guys presented to me. And if you would send me a copy of yours as well, Commissioner Sakovic, and I'll take those and I'll put together what I believe I'm understanding from where we want to go with a couple. I think Commissioner Lee and I are in a similar vein. We just have to find a way to present it in a way that is
Flows.
Yeah, so it flows properly. So let me work, if that's okay with the commissioners, I'll work on that, and I'll get a draft version of that circulated to all of you so that you can see it and give your input, and then we can pull something together for the next meeting, if that would work.
That works for me. Thank you.
And when we talk about, I'm here, but I'm the head of the Capital Projects Committee. It's not just me, it's the committee here, so I just wanted to make that little note here.
Yeah. Well, with that, I will move to continue item number 28 for 1 week. Is 1 week enough time? Or do you want 2?
Probably 2 would
Okay.
probably be better.
So November,
Okay,
June 30th then,
Yeah, so I'll move to continue item number 28 for 2 weeks.
2 weeks. I second that motion.
A motion and a second to continue item number 28 for 2 weeks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0.
Thank you, Rudy.
Okay. We are now at our work sessions. We have an update presentation on the VOCA grant. Come on up. Do you like doing these in work sessions or regular agenda items? Do you have a
I
preference?
don't have a preference.
If you do an agenda item, you might be able to get out of here earlier.
Okay, then let's do that. Okay, so I'm Katie Fox. I'm one of the victim coordinators at the Utah County Attorney's Office, and we are asked to present twice a year to give our governing body an update on our VOCA grant. So while we've struggled this past year with COVID to try to meet our goals, we are still on track to meet the majority of our goals. We've adapted and learned new ways to connect with the victims that we serve. Right now, the Utah County Attorney's Office employs 3 full-time victim coordinators. 2 are county-funded, and 1 is funded by the VOCA grant. We recently were awarded a grant that will start on July 1st for the next 2 years. However, VOCA required us to make significant cuts to our grant. We had to reduce our grant by 10% for the 2021-2022 year, and then an additional 20% for the next year. Luckily for us, that means we'll still be able to fully fund our VOCA employee for this next year, but in the 2022 year, the county is going to have to pick up a portion of her salary. They have said there may be additional cuts in the subsequent grant years, which means at some point we may lose that VOCA funding completely.
Are they tied to the grant? Are they grant-funded positions?
So one is, and then 2 are county funded.
Okay.
If that happens, we'll be stretched extremely thin, and I don't think we will be able to continue to meet our statutorily required services to victims. So that's it. Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next work session, USU Extension presentation.
emailed a presentation over to Lisa yesterday in June. I'm not sure. Am I still supposed to state my name and I'm Tom
Name,
Bettis.
date of birth, social security number. No, don't do
Yes,
that.
Tom
Don't do that.
Bettis, USU Extension. I'm a Santaquin resident also. I am going to take just a moment, and I've already met with all three of you individually and discussed a little bit more about ag and hort. So I'm going to turn more time over to other parts of extension that did not have opportunity to meet with you. I was passing out some documents on needs assessment USU has done. And this is our latest pest lab update for fruit trees. So this work is done in Utah County primarily. So with that, I'll get started. Okay. So as I spoke with you, thank you again for your time. As I spoke with the three of you over the last 6 weeks, I had announced, or Dean Miner, who is the former county director for USU Extension, is retiring and will be hiring a replacement. And I just want to give a quick update on the position and your input that I received that went into that. So there will be a focus on small farm and pasture management with this person. Livestock, including urban farming animals, it would be chickens, goats, anything that you can have in smaller areas. Some water quality and conservation, and then the new ag position, this is a little bit of a change. We'll have 4-H livestock shows and some other animal programs enveloped into that position. But we got your input on the small farms and pasture management and on the livestock, and I just want to appreciate you for that. And I will hold questions for when everyone else is done because I don't want to take their time. So I'll sit down momentarily. Okay, Brandon, I'll let him introduce himself. He's part of 4-H.
Great. Let me see if, okay, perfect. My name is Brandon Summers. I have worked with Extension now for over 5 years full time, and I oversee the 4-H mentoring program. And so, obviously many of you are familiar with 4-H in terms of animals and farming. 4-H has existed for over a century, but 4-H has expanded its youth programming significantly over the last few decades. And one of those is the mentoring program, which actually originated here in Utah. And the work we do is actually very similar to Big Brothers Big Sisters, and matching kids with volunteer mentors. And Big Brothers Big Sisters, I actually met with their CEO and operations director a few weeks ago. They struggle to service Utah County because they're so busy in Salt Lake County. And so a lot of the mentoring work we do helps to fill that need in our county. And so our programming for the mentoring program is actually 100% grant funded. We were actually awarded 2 federal grants at the end of 2020, which was exciting. I'd written both of those grants and was hoping to be awarded one of the 2. And we actually awarded both of those from the Department of Justice's Office of Justice and Juvenile Delinquency. And that equated to about $1.12 million over the next 3 years to go towards Utah County and servicing the youth in our county. And so the youth that we work with are considered more at risk between the ages of 9 to 15. And most of our youth referrals come from Title I elementary schools across the county so that we can help more low-income families that have kids in need, and we match them with mentors. Most of our mentors are college-age students that we match one-on-one, and they act as a big brother or big sister to these kids and a role model and someone that they can look to, since a lot of these kids come from very challenging circumstances. And then we also work a lot with the families. We offer monthly family events and strengthening the family unit, and then after-school clubs for the kids that are matched with mentors. And so the great part about our programming is, like I said, our program has existed for 20 years here in the county, and it's always been entirely grant funded. And we're grateful to the county for providing us, the ability to host a lot of our events in county facilities and being housed out of extension. But it's great that we have had the ability to receive so many grants, and the program has been very successful. and awarded actually from the Office of Justice and Juvenile Delinquency, recognized Utah's 4-H mentoring program as a model program to be replicated across the nation. And our program goals is overall just preventing juvenile delinquency, as well as overall we do that by increasing positive youth development. And so that's our overarching program goals. But yeah, just to kind of give you guys an update on other programming happening within 4-H that we're doing and servicing the county. Right now, we have about 200 kids that are matched with mentors in the county, and our goal is over the next year to increase that to about 300 or more kids that we can serve throughout the county. So, and I will pass this over. Melanie, who oversees the rest of our 4-H programming, she couldn't be here today, but hopefully she'll have the chance to.
Could I
talk
ask
more
you a
about
question?
4-H.
You were mentioning, is
Yeah.
it ages 9 to 15 that are at risk in the county?
Correct.
So we
yes.
have roughly 3,750 counties. Is that a fairly standard in all nationally? The at-risk group?
That age range?
Yes. Is that fairly nationwide?
Yeah, so every mentoring program is a little bit different. Big Brothers Big Sisters are similar. Their age range is a little bit bigger, from 8 to 18, but we focus in on that group because I would say 80% of the kids in our program are more between the ages of 9 to 12. We want to intervene sooner rather than later. We're a prevention program, and so we're trying to intervene in the lives of these kids before they fall into that poor association or substance abuse and things like that. And so, but yeah, that's a pretty standard age. Intervening too early can be challenging. The kids might not be mature enough to have a mentor in their
Sure.
lives. So,
Yeah, I'm just curious to see where we are in the county as opposed to other areas in the
Yeah,
U.S.
yeah, that's a great question. Thank you, Commissioner.
All right, my name is Cindy Jenkins, and I am the Extension Assistant Professor over Home and Community. Commissioner Lee, I was going to also ask if you needed, in addition to Social Security, a credit card number, other things like that, right?
DNA strand coding would be good too.
You'll take the blood after the meeting, right? Okay. All right. So this is my area, Home and Community. I'm newer to my position, so mainly what I've been doing is a needs assessment this past year. That's one of the top things. And just talking with people in the community, looking at existing needs assessments, existing program data that we have. Like how last year, just from August to December, I received 243 food safety and preservation phone calls, which was awesome, right, as I first started. And there are some really awesome top needs in our, well, I maybe won't call them awesome, but we have some top needs around here. Housing, mental and physical health, affordable healthcare, affordable food options. And one of the big programs that I'm working on is Create Better Health. This one is existing. It's one that I just picked up and am carrying along with me. We teach nutrition classes to low-income families. I supervise several ambassadors who go and do this. And then in addition to this, I have many additional projects that I'm working on. As Brandon spoke to his grant funding that he got, because I am newer, I applied for several different USU grants. They're called small grants, like mini ones, and received about $60,000 in funding to work on each of these different little grants, which will potentially lead to larger grants in the future. Right now, I'm kind of pushing them through to see which ones will really succeed and be the most successful and have the best impacts, and then we'll pull out the ones that are not having good impacts and then really keep going with the ones that are having great impacts. So homelessness research, gluten-free accessibility, craft entrepreneurship program, which is a program to help women have Etsy businesses, small businesses, and I'm also working with Utah Women in Leadership Project. So many good things going on there. And here's how you can connect with me. Any questions?
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, I wanted to share these with you. These, great, things are falling. So I wanted to share some documents with you. Big on statistics and all that stuff.
I'll pass these on.
And I think I actually gave it. There's a third here. I'll take that back.
Thank you.
So my name is Gabriella Mirza, and I am also with Extension, obviously. I work under the HEART Initiative, which is also part of Home and Community, the Home and Community Department. But basically, the HEART Initiative, it's the Health Extension Advocacy Research and Teaching Initiative. It started out as a 4-year pilot program that began in the summer of 2018. And so what I gave you are the annual reports for the 2018-19 year. And then we have the last year, 19 to 20. And in the summer, in July, we'll start compiling the 20 to 21 data that I'll be able to share with you. But basically what HEART is it is a pilot program with USU Extension. It is fully state funded, so we don't receive any county funding for our faculty and the work that we do. But we just work with the communities. We bring academic resources into our community. We partner locally, and we also work nationally at the national level with other organizations. And we address the opioid epidemic. That is the biggest thing that the HEART Initiative is focused on, is addressing the opioid crisis in the state of Utah, and also working nationally, but also at the county level. So we kind of have this tier, all of these levels that we're kind of working in and working on. And we also work on different types of public health issues. We are driven by 4 pillars, all of the stuff that we do. So we focus on prevention and education. We strengthen our community ties. So we work a lot with our coalitions, and we help build coalitions in communities that might not have them. We also work on resiliency building education, and then stigma and harm reduction. We have 5 faculty that serve in 9 counties. I'm one of those 5, and I work in Utah County. But we are in 9 counties around the state where opioid use disorder has had some of the most devastating effects as far as overdose and deaths related to opioid use. And that can be, whether it's prescription only or all opioids, the numbers are really similar and they're really dramatic. So we do have that information in the annual report as well that you can read up on. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about and just give a brief overview on are some of the work that I've been doing, some of the grants that I completed. Like Cindy, I am pretty new. I started here at the end of February of 2020. So I spent a good part of 2020 getting to know the community and getting to know the state, because I'm also from out of state. So a lot of learning done, even if it was remote. But I was able to secure grants throughout in 2020. I had a grant that piloted a remote work certification course with inmates at in Garfield County Jail specifically. But we're hoping that through this, as we went through the pilot and found was evaluated that we could expand this statewide, and we'd be working with the Rural Online Initiative, which is another program through USU Extension. I also had a grant, $75,000 grant that addressed COVID messaging, and we had been able to reach within 9 counties around Utah. We reached about 3 million people through different messages using radio, using print media, and billboard signs and things like that. We were able to reach around 3 million. So some of the things that I do that really kind of focus on opioids, I work a lot in injury prevention and also resilience development. So I am working with Brandon on the grant, one of the OJJDP grants, where I'll be working with the mentors to train them on resilience building, to help them develop those skills, and also how it could translate to working with their mentees. And then also within injury prevention, one of the big things is one of the novel approaches is working with employees. So right now working with master gardeners and horticulture specialists to teach them how to stretch and safely move, and best practices for gardening and for horticulture work, so that they minimize those aches and strains, and hopefully that need for some stronger medication, stronger opioids or some kind of pain medication. So it's more on pain management. I'm also helping to conduct living well with chronic conditions classes, and hopefully getting trained soon in chronic pain management education as well, to be able to provide to the county. And those are both done with Intermountain Healthcare and also the Department of Health, kind of that partnership. So, and that is pretty much it. And I do have an art installation that I'm working with the Utah County Art Board that's happening the first Friday in September, if y'all want to come. And that one's focusing on mental illness and mental health to be able to share experiences and also share resources, the kind of resources that we have in Utah County that could connect people to the services and the help that they might be seeking, because we do have a lot of great services. So being able to highlight those, and people get to see some cool art from the community. So, and that's it for me, actually. So do you have any questions? I kind of blew through that, but
I've got a question for you on page 7. I mean, the opioid situation, the crisis that we're in, it has the chart on there from 2013 to 2017. And I find it disheartening that in the state of Utah, we're at 16.2 over a population of 100,000, and the United States is at a 5.2. So we're significantly higher. Has that trend leveled? I mean, we put some significant effort into trying to educate a few years ago on that level, and got our hospitals and doctors and dentists and others to buy in and find ways to help, especially on the prescription opioid side. Do you see that trend going up? Do you see it leveling? Where is it at?
right now the national data, when you look at federal data like from the CDC or NIDA, so the National Institute for Drug Abuse, their data is usually 2 years behind. So the most recent data they have collected is from 2019. And the CDC has some 2020 data, but it's not as robust. But basically, nationally, the trend seems to be getting a little bit better in Utah, specifically like Utah State. It has leveled off, but then 2020 hit, and everywhere the numbers went up. They did increase as far as deaths due to opioids. Now, as far as Utah County specifically, the trends seem to be going down or leveling off. They seem to be getting better. But again, with things like COVID that happened, those numbers are going to be skewed, and it might take some time to bring those levels down again. Because it's not only opioid use itself, it's not only the taking of that prescription or that opioid, but it's also the stress that comes with COVID, that came with COVID, the stress, the inability to maintain those close relationships, or even being able to go to recovery and support services, or be able to get the treatment that they needed, even if it was virtual. That wasn't available for everybody. So we might see we might see some data, some really kind of scary data for 2020, but hopefully, with the collaborative effort with the different agencies that are addressing this in Utah County, hopefully we're able to work on this. So, it's not. I'm feeling positive about it. I know the work is there. The work is definitely there. So it'll take some time. And the other thing is that there's also a federal side to this, so federal and national changes that have occurred. So just a few months ago, buprenorphine being able to for a provider to be able to prescribe buprenorphine as part of the treatment, without so many obstacles getting in the way. Some of those were rescinded a little bit, were taken back, so that makes it easier. And so that could be a great asset to somebody who's in treatment for opioid use disorder. And then just some of the things that even the FDA had put in place in 2020 when it comes to hospitals and prescribers and physicians, prescribing opioids, and the type of information that needs to be shared with that patient or with that client who is getting those opioids. So there's a lot of different things at play that is trickling down into the county, and the county's taking those and kind of taking advantage of those and making sure that they're being shared and taken advantage of in the county. Long answer, I'm sorry, but.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other questions? Any questions for Ton? Thank you, Ton. You're doing a great job.
Thank you for
Appreciate
coming.
what you're doing in the county.
We will plan on another work session in the near future to present a little bit more of what we're doing, just to help you all get more familiar with USU Extension in Utah County. So thank you again.
Yeah, reach out to any of us. We'll get you a calendar on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that ends our work session. Is there any general public comment? Seeing everybody jump up, but no one coming to the microphone. Anybody online that, no? Okay. Then we will move into our closed meetings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
I know, you gotta have it. Now it's starting to be one of those things where it's in my head. I'm expecting it. Now, that's how I know that it's off, right?
Hold off until you
Yeah,
say
they're
it.
like, wait a second, is that off?